This video is sponsored by Squarespace. And yes, if you grow your potatoes outside of Chernobyl or something, they're going to be radioactive. That is not what this video is about. I mean, that's duh. This video is about two common foods that are notably, commonly, routinely radioactive. Modestly radioactive, not dangerously radioactive, but like measurably and meaningfully radioactive all the time, even when they're grown under ideal conditions. Those two big foods are the banana, might have heard about that one, and the Brazil nut. I don't know if you heard about that one. Maybe you did. These are radioactive. Am I trying to scare you? Absolutely not. In fact, I'm trying to do the exact opposite. See, for me, learning about just how radioactive these foods are has helped me to better understand on an intuitive level just how little a small amount of radiation is compared to like a lot of radiation that would actually hurt you. The spectrum is just so incredibly huge. It's hard to kind of think about in human terms, but I think the foods help, so let's talk about them. You may have heard that bananas have a whole lot of potassium, and that is correct. And a small percentage of all the naturally occurring potassium found in the Earth's surface is radioactive. It's this one particular isotope called potassium-40. What even is an isotope? Well, consider an atom of potassium, that one particular chemical element. Its number is 19 because it has 19 protons in its nucleus. That's where it gets its number from, and that's kind of what defines it as an element, is the number of protons in the nucleus. The number of neutrons in the nucleus determines its isotope. Some isotopes are particularly unstable. Parts of them could come shooting off at any second. And that's what we generally mean when we talk about radiation, or at least particle radiation. It's teeny little subatomic bits of stuff that come flying out at really, really high energy, sufficiently high energy to ionize, that is to electrically charge the other little tiny things that it comes into contact with, and also small enough to damage you in meaningful ways. Most notably with humans, it damages our DNA, which creates monster zombie cells that we call cancer. What you're seeing here is the condensation trails being left behind by individual particles of radiation in my kitchen. I've been playing around with a cloud chamber a lot lately. It's this very old piece of technology where you take a fish tank and you put it down on something that is both metal and dark colored. Dark colored is important for the color contrast, otherwise it's really, really hard to see what you need to see. You put down some dry ice or other source of extreme cold, you put the metal on top of that, and then the fish tank on top of that, and in the top of the fish tank, on the inside, there's a rag that is soaked with isopropyl alcohol. You then have to seal all the way around and then wait a second, and then what you get is this fine mist of isopropyl alcohol droplets that are sort of cascading down over that cold, dark metal surface. And if you light it from the side, you can illuminate trails that are left by individual particles. And that's what we're seeing right there. Particles of radiation passing through those droplets that are really, really want to condense with each other, and they do momentarily when they are disrupted and kind of smashed together by that ionizing radiation. This footage I've slowed down by about half, just so you know, and all you're seeing here is the background radiation in my kitchen. There's nothing in the box. It's just the normal stuff that's whizzing around in the cosmos, cosmic rays coming down and hitting the Earth, or other things bouncing off of radioactive things that are in my countertops. Stones are often radioactive. And you live in a masonry house, you tend to get a lot of more radioactivity than people who live in a wood house, right? It's just radiation around us everywhere. And that's all you're seeing in the box here is just normal background radiation. I wanted to see if I could see the actual radiation coming off of a banana. So I tried putting a slice of banana in my cloud chamber, and I think that little squiggle, that might have been a beta particle, which is what you would expect to come from potassium-40, a beta particle. That little squiggle there might have been a beta particle jumping out of the banana. It looks like a beta particle. That's what they do in cloud chambers. They make these little teeny curlicues and then they go away because they're very low energy. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to conclusively visually isolate radiation coming out of a banana in a cloud chamber. What we need is a Geiger counter, or even better, a scintillator, which is a more sensitive instrument to measure radiation. And yes, every single one of those little clicks, I'll put it near the microphone so you can hear it, every one of those clicks is a particle of radiation hitting the instrument and being registered. And I see the background radiation in my kitchen looks to be about like 6 clicks a second. Let's see. I notice absolutely no difference when I hold it up to the banana. Why not? Because there just isn't that much potassium in here. And you gotta think of radiation as like holding a bag of tiny, tiny bombs, right? Tiny, tiny bombs in a bag. Any single one of them could go off at any given second. But if you don't have that many bombs in the bag, not many of them are going to go off. This is a bag of mostly other stuff, mostly water, ugly bag of mostly water, just like me. But there's a few little teeny bombs in there, but not that many. What we need is like a more concentrated bag of bombs, and that we can get here with a potassium-based salt replacement. It's for people whose doctors have told them to eat less sodium. It's a salt of potassium chloride, right, which tastes salty, but just has this kind of weird bitter aftertaste. Anyway, so this is like half potassium, the mass of this. And so this should be radioactive as hell, right? Let's try putting it in the cloud chamber. Maybe that was one. Maybe that came out of the potassium salt. I really have no idea. You put the scintillator on it, there's no apparent immediate difference with the background radiation. So what we need to do is try to measure things over time, right? Like here, I've had the scintillator sitting in this bowl in my kitchen for about 10 minutes, and that's what 10 minutes of background radiation looks like in my kitchen. Then we put a banana on it and leave it, right? I'm going to tell you right now, that's not going to get us anything. There's just not enough potassium here. What we need is like a concentrated form of banana, like banana chips, right? These have been dried and baked, so there's almost no water in these. It's much more concentrated dry matter, so there's just a whole lot more potassium proportionally in this stuff. So let's try burying the scintillator in banana chips and then leaving that for 10 minutes and seeing if over time we're able to notice any kind of difference. And I don't know, just visually looking at the chart there, I see nothing, no bump of all really there. Let's instead let the scintillator get a baseline reading for another 10 minutes and then bury it in the potassium salt. Then look at that for 10 minutes. And there, yeah, okay. Now we're seeing a little observable bump over the background radiation levels in both the dose level and the count rate. The dose level looks at both the count rate, but also like the energy of the particles and what kind of particles they are. It's a whole thing. And the dose of radiation that you get from eating one banana is actually kind of a standardized thing in the radiation studying world. It's known as the banana dose, and it's that. And this chart, by the way, is one of my favorite data visualizations of all time. It's by this guy named Randall Munroe, who is a cartoonist. You know him from his cartoons called XKCD, sort of from the good old days of the internet, just absolutely rad stuff. Rad guy. I met him once when we both lived in Boston years ago. But anyway, he made this radiation dose chart around the time of the Fukushima disaster to help people contextualize how much radiation is a lot. And there, two of these little blue squares there represent the radiation dose you get from eating one banana, as compared to this many squares, which is like a dental x-ray. And everything in this entire area of the chart here is down here. Like all of that equals 3 green squares, right? And what is 3 green squares? Well, it's about the extra radiation dose you get from living in a stone, brick, or concrete building for a year, right? This many green bricks is the dose you get from spending like an hour on the grounds of Chernobyl today, which is something that you really don't want to do. That said, it's still a relatively minor amount of radiation because this is the maximum amount of radiation that a worker in the United States is legally allowed to get above their baseline quantity in the course of doing their job, right? And then everything that's green here fits into, what is it? It looks like 7 of these red squares. And this is where we start to get to really, really serious dosages, okay? So this is the lowest dose that's clearly linked to an increased risk of cancer. This is the amount of radiation that is could kill you, and here's the amount that definitely will kill you, okay? That's the difference in scale when we talk about eating a banana versus dying. And then, of course, the other common food that is always a little bit radioactive is the Brazil nut. I tried putting a Brazil nut into the cloud chamber, and that might have been a particle coming off of that. So Brazil nuts are radioactive for a really, really different reason. Brazil nuts grow, well, in Brazil, in South America, in these jungle trees that are absolutely gargantuan, like some of the biggest trees in the world, and incredibly deep root systems that go so far into the ground that they actually access a lot of naturally occurring radium. Radium being a naturally occurring radioactive metal that's just in the soil. When it decays into particle radiation, it's known as radon, which you might have heard as being a problem in houses that have certain conditions. But how much radiation? Well, I tried burying the scintillator in Brazil nuts for 10 minutes, and I see no difference there over background. And the thing I thought to do was maybe bash the Brazil nuts into teeny little bits to massively increase their surface area, make it more likely that particles that are being spit out of the tiny little bombs in this object are more likely to make it out to the surface. Bury the scintillator in pulverized Brazil nuts, and yeah, there we go. Now we can see a little bit of thing happening over the course of 10 minutes. A little bump there. You know, one thing I noticed is that these pulverized Brazil nuts fluoresce under the black light, under ultraviolet light. They are excited and they emit light, as fluorescent objects do. And that's probably because of the selenium that is particularly high in certain Brazil nuts. That's my best bet. It has nothing to do with the radiation. Just because something is fluorescent doesn't mean it's radioactive. Uranium is both fluorescent and radioactive, and this is a piece of uranium glass, antique uranium dyed glass or stained glass, which we talked about in a recent video that is linked in the description. And let's see what some real radiation looks like. Let's put the scintillator on this, and oh my God, that's what we call a bump. Good Lord, that's a lot of radiation. Even that isn't anywhere close to the amount of radiation that would be concerning to anyone's health. You have to have so much radiation, so many tiny bombs going off around you to have the odds raised meaningfully that you're gonna get cancer, right? All right, here's one more demonstration that I hope will put your mind at ease, okay? So here's the background radiation in my kitchen right now. It looks like it's like between 4 and 5 clicks per second. Remember that when we held this up to a banana, there was no immediate apparent change in the clicks per second that we were getting. Let's go in my basement instead. Between 7 and 8 clicks a second. The background radiation almost doubled by going from the kitchen to the basement. Whereas before, we got absolutely no immediate apparent difference on this thing, exposing it to all manner of radioactive bananas and Brazil nuts. Instead, it immediately doubled when we went from the upstairs to the downstairs, because we're suddenly surrounded by a whole lot more rock and dirt which contains radioactive material. So, if you're not scared to go down into your basement, for radiation reasons at least, you shouldn't be scared to eat bananas or Brazil nuts. It's all good. Nor should you be scared to start your own website with Squarespace, sponsor of this video. Especially with social media companies becoming so, shall we say, volatile lately, you definitely want to have your own place on the internet that you own and control and doesn't necessarily associate you with somebody else, and that's what a website does for you. Say you're a photographer and you need to display your work so you can get clients. You can start working with a professionally designed website template if you want, or you can design one yourself, or you can have the computer make one for you, which I'm going to do. My site title is Radioactive Photography. Guess my brand personality is going to be quirky. Guess I'm going to need an intro section and a services section. Maybe some forms if I want people to inquire about my services. That seems like a good color palette for discussing nuclear food. Choose a font, you know, a serif. I've not used serifs in a long time. I think I'll use them kind of ironically here. And now immediately I have something to build on. I can just start replacing computer-generated stuff with me-generated stuff, like this photo that I got of the fluorescing Brazil nuts. Let's see, radiating talent. Isn't that what I'm doing all the darn time? And from this, it's really easy to change how it's going to display in mobile versus desktop, which is really important. I don't need to tell you that. And if I need to add something I might have forgotten, I just hit Add Section, and I can go down. I can add a thing where I can auto-generate invoices or accept payments. A Squarespace site has everything that you need in order to present yourself either personally or professionally on the internet. And you can start building yours right now for free at squarespace.com/Ragusia. But when it's time for you to pay to have them host your site to make it public and it'll live on their servers, or if you need to pay for a custom domain name, just remember my code, Ragusia. Save you 10% at checkout. Use my code Ragusia at checkout. Thank you, Squarespace. And thanks to the nerds who used this kind of technology about 100 years ago to prove the existence of invisible radiation that can kill you. It's really nice that everybody at least believes in that now, right? Right?